This is called "Did Slavery Affect Your Family? Africans versus African American Middle Ground." I don't know if I'll have a whole lot to say, but I am curious about what is being said. Maybe we'll learn something. So let's get this road on the show.
I came here to me coming from Africa. I came here to better my life, and I feel like personally we need to stop using the word racism when we don't get something or when something don't go our way. Just
let me jump in real quick.
Oh, that's fair.
No disrespect, but racism exists, and I have to acknowledge it.
That's also
and
true.
I can't just ignore it. But what I can do is not buy into the system.
Okay. I think that in general, I would say that there is, like, generally speaking, there is being oppressed versus having like an oppressed mentality, right? And so, like, being, we can all identify with different forms of oppression. Like I came from like a single mom. Now, obviously, there are people with more extreme forms of oppression going on. I would say black people maybe generally would be. I mean, if you're like Willow Smith, no, but So I get it. There are people who can identify with more forms of oppression. That being said, that there's also like an oppressed mentality, where you hyper focus on it so much that you perceive everything as an oppression. Whereas like sometimes maybe it's not. Like maybe, if you have like an oppressed mentality, maybe you think that the reason someone doesn't open the door for you is because they're racist. But it's like, well, maybe they're just an asshole, So that doesn't mean that there isn't like a real issue here. So there's a difference between trying to like identify like, hey, there's a problem versus hyper focusing on it in a way where you perceive everything as part of that problem. Does that make sense? I'm not even saying that that's those people. I'm just making like a general statement.
Step forward if you agree. Slavery affected my family.
Bro, it actually hit my family pretty hard. We lost a lot of good workers. I'm just kidding. When we abolished it, that was the joke. Damn, I gotta stop. I gotta stop. All right, these jokes are. I think sometimes it's okay to be quiet. I think that's what I'm learning here today, because I'm not even happy with that joke I made. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. Wow. Disappointing. Okay, let's move on. I know, too much, bro. I didn't even come from like those fucking English inbred fucks, bro. I'm literally German. Okay? I'm literally fucking German. Maybe I don't know if they did slaveries. Yeah. So kind of sus, yeah. Hey,
yeah,
listen,
I mean,
sometimes you go for a joke and it's a little too much, bro. Oh, fuck, I forgot. You're gonna clip me out of context with that? All right, brother. Fuck. Make sure you put in there where I apologize. All right, thank you.
that's just evident in my last name, King. I mean, that's the brand of the slave owner that put that name on my family all those years ago, and I'm still wearing
Like, I think after people were freed, like the name Freedman, I think is supposed to be a slave name. I could be wrong with that.
it in those ways, along with the compounded, economic disparity, social disparity, mental trauma, all of that. I mean, it's tethered forever.
So
I wonder if that's true. Like, I'm just exploring, because in America, it wasn't just slavery, right? It was like slavery plus, hundreds of years of oppression. So I wonder if this, if it's like a combined amount. Like, I wonder if, and this is impossible, but if we just ended slavery and then everybody's like, okay, you're equal now, if slavery would have still had a long-lasting impact. But it's obviously more than just that.
to go back to slavery and talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, it has never stopped. So there is no post. What my great-grandparents were teaching my grandparents, who taught my mother, who taught me, came from what they learned through
Generational trauma, I think that's what it's called. I feel you.
slavery.
Okay.
So there's a lot of fear, a lot of insecurity, a fear of society, a fear of law enforcement. So slavery has made a major impact where the low self-esteem is consistently reoccurring.
Drew
That's
became
fair.
a member.
Hey, thank you so much for the small guy, brother.
I think for me, growing up in Los Angeles, California in the early 1960s, there was a stereotype that I didn't want to be black. I didn't want to be African because we come from Africa or we're slaves. So I want to be a Chinese boy. I want to be Bruce Lee. So growing up like that, I didn't like myself and who I was. I didn't like the color of my skin or the way that I spoke. So I emulated other people. I wanted to be something that I was not.
Okay. Damn. That's some real shit.
Very saddening when you can literally only go back a couple generations and then it's like the documents just don't exist. There's no record. It's like, my family has completely been erased. In that same point too, in the time that we've been here, we've created an incredible culture and we have so many things to be proud of. And I always reframe the narrative myself and speak of my ancestors that were enslaved as, doctors and healers, and it's like, we were taken because we were talented,
Right.
Because we had skills to offer.
Oh, is that true? I have no idea. Like, I just know that, like, unfortunately, I think it was some African tribes or something would take some people and then they would sell it to us, obviously. I have no idea I guess that might be true.
Built this country, so.
And still building.
And still building.
Did they take, like prominent members? I'm just genuinely curious. Or did they take, like, poor people? I was always under that second assumption, but maybe I'm wrong.
Something to take pride in, so.
Can they disagree a step forward?
That could just be ignorance, huh?
Slavery didn't affect my family, but we did suffer a different type of slavery back home. Like, we went through colonization. Like,
True.
I am Bamileke. There was a massacre of Bamileke. You guys can, like, look it up. They killed, like, more than 300,000 of my people.
The Bamileke War is the name of the independence struggle between Bamileke, Cameroon's nationalist movement, and France. The movement was spearheaded by the Cameroonian People's Union. Even after independence, the rebellion continued shaping contemporary politics. The war began with riots in 1955 and continued after Cameroon gained independence. Interesting.
People, because we didn't want to assimilate to the French culture. But it's still nothing compared to what you guys' ancestor been through,
I wouldn't want to minimize that pain, though. What you just said hurt me. That 300,000 people were killed because they would not conform to the colonization of the French people. So that is just as painful and hurtful as the trauma that we suffered here in America.
I can't share the same experience that you have went through and your family, even though we also had our own type of slavery. We had apartheid at the time, where the Dutch people took over and they wanted to just have South Africa, Namibia, and I think other countries where we could
What was the prompt? It was slavery affected my family.
only just speak Dutch. It's somehow still happening even now. There's like a place in South Africa where it's called Oranje, and it's just Dutch people there. No black person is even allowed there. So we still somehow feel that, and
Really?
it's just Dutch people there. No
Was that Aranya?
place in South Africa where they just speak Dutch. It's somehow still happening in South
What the fuck?
Africa, Namibia, and I think other countries where we could only just speak Dutch. It's somehow still happening even now. There's like a place in South Africa where it's called Oranje, and it's just
Oranje.
Dutch people there.
Wow.
No black person is even allowed there. So we still somehow feel that oppression even now, but it's nothing compared to what your ancestral history, has gone through. I'm somehow happy that you guys have forgiven it, even though you haven't forgotten it. Have you forgiven it? I mean, like your face, like.
But me personally, no, I haven't. But I want to work through the change. But no, I have not forgiven because it's a system that's still going on. And from what I'm hearing from you guys, there's a system that's still going on in Africa as well, and it's a war on us.
Racism is the main cause of poverty among black people in America.
Maybe. I mean, like, the answer, I guess the answer is always yes. Only because, like, the reason black people have such a disparity in America is because of, like, historical racism of being denied jobs and whatnot. Historically, being enslaved, not having, a bunch of monies, to be able to pass on from generation to generation. Even if you think slavery isn't as active anymore, it's still, like, echoes from the past, where it's, like, one of those things where, from a country perspective, it's like, oh, let's make black people poor. And then now that they're poor, it's like, ew, look at these poor black people. That's kind of how it manifests nowadays, where people are just like, oh, it manifests in like this unfortunate, like harmful stereotype that black people are like poor and whatnot. And then like it's perpetuated because it's like that's where the stereotype comes from. It's like it's unfortunately true, but it's not because they're inherently bad people or anything. It's just like a fucking systemic problem, right? But I think that focusing on poverty probably cure most of the issues, if not all of them, but.
Racism is a very big issue.
Burning Black
that
Wall Street.
Talking about it, I'm really trying to be careful to not like say anything that will be insensitive. If opportunity is right here, they will give it to people of other race than African American and Africans too. So if there's a job that maybe have math requirement, I feel like they'll pick an Asian person, or they believe, oh, African Americans will not dress appropriate, so they will pick another person. They will always like
Maybe.
pick people that are not black over people that are black.
And I also think
I don't know if that's true in America, if that's what they're talking to. I don't know if that's true. Maybe there is, but I think that the bigger issue is more just the lack of black people that are able to, like, for in this instance, like some kind of like accountant, I guess that they're referring to. Like, there's less black accountants proportionate to black people because there's less education in like poor black communities. I think that's more of what's going on. I don't think it's as much of like, oh, they look black as it is as much as like, oh, there's less black people that are qualified to do the job, unfortunately, right?
I think the crucial missing point when we talk about economic disparity, time is the most valuable currency. And if you have a stock that's the American dream is the stock, and during all that time, all that asset, the American dream was appreciating, and you're not allowed to take out business loans, you're not allowed to read, you're not allowed to write, you had to first fight to become 3/5 of a citizen, then you got Jim Crow, and then you got everything else. Yeah. It's you're now having to buy in at a price so high because the time is irreparable. You can't get that back. One black person today cannot, in one lifetime, achieve what generations of white families were able to do simply because they didn't have to compete with us to do it.
Yeah.
Sure. And then with poverty going on, it's difficult for right now. It's just difficult for any group of people to it's difficult for any family to move upward. That upward mobility isn't there nearly as much as it used to be, like it was back in the day. So being poor, on top of the fact that there is very little upward mobility in America, it's obviously going to make it so you're just going to continuously be poor. 100%.
I agree with you totally.
Yeah, I was thinking, just like you said, from a historical standpoint, we start with slavery, then that's centuries, generations of stolen labor, like you said. Then we get into Jim Crow, which is just an extension of that. Then we have redlining, we have mass incarceration, we have events like the bombing of Tulsa and Rosewood in Florida, and all these different examples of our wealth being decimated. And I don't say that to come from a defeatist or a victim mindset, but I think if we just have an honest conversation about history and what we've gone through when we've been here, racism is definitely a big part of that. And there are a lot of successful Black Americans, a lot of millionaires, a lot of business owners, but they're exceptions for sure for a reason. And there's a big difference.
Will Smith? Huh? I don't know what I'm saying. Will Smith.
Income and wealth. I would like to challenge the
I'd say that those individuals who have been able to attain the wealth, those people probably aren't as oppressed. Well, they're not as oppressed nearly as much, or possibly at all. So
the ideal that African Americans are lazy or that we don't have a good work ethic. I think there's this perception that we're here, we're in America. How are we not doing better for ourselves? So.
I thought I was going to be the only one staying. I was going to be like, oh, I'm about to be like Kanye West. But okay, there's a lot of things we can use as an excuse to hold us back, not to reach our potential. But it's up to us to look past that. Me coming from Africa, I came here to better my life, my family. I'm the only one here. And since I have been here, there's a lot of bad things that happen to me. There's also a lot of good things that happen to me. Us African or African American, we need to look past racism and not just focus on our own goal. What do we want to achieve? We need to stop using the word racism when we don't get something or when something don't go our way, and just keep trying.
Let me jump in real quick. Okay. No disrespect, but racism exists, and I have to acknowledge it. And I can't just ignore it. But what I can do is not buy into the system. If I want to do something, let me be the entrepreneur. What I believe happened in the 1960s is that we started looking for equal rights, to be equal with other people. And what we stopped doing, and I heard you talk about Tulsa, we stopped using the Black-owned businesses. Now, because you guys got to understand, the Fair Housing Act in 1968, I'm 5 years old. That's when we could move off the east side of LA and move into other subcultures. So what I wanted to do at 8 years old was go to IHOP. I didn't want to go to the Ma and Pa restaurant anymore. I want to go to, let's go eat at the hotels. So what we did is stop supporting each other and started supporting corporate America. So
that's interesting, because just me personally, I hate going to smaller stores. I always only really go to I mostly will only go to corporate places. And I know that sounds so bizarre, but the reason is because I don't know, I weirdly when I walk into a smaller shop, regardless of what it is, I feel pressured to buy something. Whereas if I walk into a Walmart, I don't feel pressured to buy something. So I just don't want to walk into the smaller store. You know what I mean? It makes me I don't want to go in there, because if I don't want to buy anything, I'm just going to walk. I'm going to feel bad and I have to buy something. So I know that sounds so weird, but that's kind of where I come from sometimes.
Racism plays a major part, but we don't have to buy into it.
Yeah, I'll make the title White Guy Finds Out About Black People. White Guy Learns About Black People? Epically based.
I've been waiting to disagree with you, my brother. I'm waiting patiently. The thing is, even though I want to disagree with you, I get where you're coming from. When I see Black people talking about racism, all that stuff, I'm like, what is wrong with these people? You guys have food, you have EBT, all this thing, and you're here shouting about somebody is racist. You just leave that person and move on. I feel that way. Why are they always complaining? But when Black Lives Matters started happening, I sat down, I said, I need to actually know why these people are pained. And if we look at the history, what they've done to them, if you actually sit down, watch some documentaries, how they were maltreated, I don't think if I'm actually born, I will forgive those people. I don't care. It's easier for us Africans that were raised in Africa to feel like they're complaining, because we were raised through struggle. I barely even have water, and you have water, you're complaining. But then it's not about the basic necessity or about how we are raised. We are raised I don't want to say way better. We might not have resources, but there's some way, our own people will not look down on us or put us behind. So it's in their nature that way. Like, they just can't overlook it. And if you sit down and watch everything that the forefathers have been through for real, I changed my mind. No, they need to be angry. However, they should still move forward.
I mean, we have police brutality back home too.
Okay.
True.
We have, like, if you go to Cameroon and then you see how the police officer treat us, and they're black just like us, you're not even gonna believe it. You know, and in Cameroon we have this. Have you guys heard of the word like tribalism? So
Yeah, it happens in Nigeria.
Yeah, so we do get oppressed too, and.
Interesting. So you're saying that they get oppressed based on like a different, they get, a different tribe of people. A lot of times when we look at tribalism in America, it's like race and then politics. It's like what tribe you belong to, like black, white, Republican, Democrat. So I guess he's saying the same thing, except I wonder what the tribe is over there. Like, what is it? How do they separate people over there? Like rich, poor? I wonder what it is. Because I know that there are countries that class or caste systems. I don't know. Well, okay.
I agree.
So when I'm saying like we need to like look past that, I'm not saying forget what happened to you guys or me. At the end of the day, we cannot just sit and just grieve on the past. We have to be able to move on, but not forget. If I could choose a place to live, it would obviously be my country. I love my country, but right now, my country is not the best choice for me. There's a little genocide going on in Cameroon right now.
There's a little genocide? Damn, what the fuck? That's terrible. I'm not trying to, it's not funny. It's just like, he's like, yeah, it's just a little genocide. Like, that's fucking horrible. What the fuck?
So many innocent lives have been taken.
Wow.
If I was still in my country, the opportunity that I have here, I would not have those opportunities there.
Hip hop reinforces stereotypes about the black community.
I feel like, in general, just from a music perspective, there is some music that can be like a little bit toxic if it has like a little bit of a toxic, part to it. I'm just saying, like there's some, like, I think it's called, like, I don't know, there's like gang rap and stuff, and that's not hip hop, so it's whatever, but like that's about violent shit, and people listen to that music, and then they want to do that thing. It's about starting up beefs with other people and talking shit about them, and there can be a negative impact when it comes to music fundamentally. I don't know about hip hop. I think music in general has become very sexualized. I don't know if it's because of hip hop. I don't think it's because of black people, but yeah, I don't know. It depends on the hip hop. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that we just more as a society been so focused on like sexualized music lately, just in general, regardless of what it is. And like, kind of invades people's minds a little bit,
In South Africa, we have our own version of hip hop, so we call it Kwaito. So they would rap in our own language, we call it Vernac. So back home, it kind of did reinforce some stereotypes, because now when you go out in the world, people will just classify you under one group. And growing up, also looking at American entertainment, looking at the hip hop that's done here, I'm like, oh well, you're rapping about drugs, you're rapping about this. Of course it's going to happen. Of course you're going to go to jail. But getting older, you see the culture as well of hip hop. I had to understand that there's a culture within that.
I was alive when hip hop started, and it was during a time where people rapped about what they saw, what they wanted in life. And then it became where people rapped about what they had been through, what they had gotten over, used to sell drugs, used to hurt people, but now this is who they are. And I think it's gotten into now, and in our day and age now, it's where people are glorifying and wanting to pretend that these are the things that they do on a daily basis when it's not. So
Okay, I respect that. Yeah, for sure.
it went from storytelling to now really it's truly storytelling, but it's unhealthy for our culture.
That's fair. I feel like everything happens like that. Like everything. Like I'm a fat guy, so I'll use fat. Like the fat acceptance movement was chill. It's just about loving yourself so that you love yourself enough to change. And now there are some people that take it a little too far, go a little too crazy. So I feel like that's what happens with ultimately like every movement in some capacity.
I don't want to on my radio and all I'm hearing is I put a bullet in it, something like I'm like, that's what you would do. No, like, and then it's like it's all about like talking about female body type, the booty, the thing. Like, don't talk about my booty like that. So I don't want to listen to something that portray me as a female that way, or something that is talking about how you put bullets in my head. Like, if you actually do not come to America and see for yourself, you would think that most African Americans are carrying guns around and they just shoot randomly, or they just grab your ass or something like that. That's the way the music portray them. And music is a very important element in our society because it influences a lot of people, both youngs and adults. And then they kind of see all those stuff and they act like that, even though that's not what they really want to be. They act like that and behave like that. Like if all these rappers are your role model, then you want to be like them. You want to be cool too. So in the end, it's about like the people that are packaging the music. And
hey, what's going on? It's the first live you caught. Very cool, very cool.
Sometimes it's about trend. It's what people want to hear.
Okay.
The American dream is only for white people.
Ooh, what is the American dream anymore? Back in the day, I'm gonna look it up because like, what is the American dream? The idea by which equality of opportunity is available to any American, allowing the highest aspirations and goals. I mean, yeah, I don't think that that's what the American dream is. It doesn't exist. Well, I guess it probably exists more for white people because white people are disproportionately like richer. But I mean, I don't feel like we have the correct opportunity or equality of opportunity. Like equality of opportunity is different from an equality of outcome, right? Equality of opportunity is like, hey, we were able to go to a good school. We had access to good food with good nutrition to help us grow physically, like not only in our body, but in like our brain growth. Access to that's what a quality of opportunity means. I don't think it's like that. You just look at any poor area and they're just so much worse off. They're going to have like a worse outcome. And we don't need to make everything perfectly equal, but like even their poorest schools should be solid schools. The areas should be safe. You know what I mean? We're definitely not there. And again, we're at a point where like, yeah, black people are disproportionately poor. They probably don't have the same access to the American dream. But now when I think of the American dream, the first thing I think of is like people desperately trying to be fucking TikTok stars. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I believe that the American dream is only for white people because it says equal. And when we talk about equal, there's no equality between the 1%, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Trumps, and the people who really run the media and things of that nature. So
the Jews, I think he's trying to say. I'm just kidding. That's a joke too. Sorry.
For black people growing up in America and living in America, we could become rich, we could become wealthy, but we are not on the equal playing field.
Well, I'd say once you become rich and wealthy, you're on a much equal playing field. But okay.
Of white America, the system of white supremacy, which is in the law enforcement, which is in the judicial system, which is in the...
I'm not saying that you can't get like, still prejudiced as a black person if you're rich. I'm just saying I think that most of that inequality's gone once you get that, you know what I mean? Like Will Smith is doing all right. And I'm not saying that that's all black people. I'm just saying I think that like financial is a pretty big. I personally, and they could just be ignorant, think that like poverty is the biggest oppressor. It just happens to be that a lot of black people are poor because of historical systemic racism and shit.
Prison Industrial Association, also in the politics, we are not equal in any of those terms.
When I was back there, when you were speaking, I started thinking like, could we ever actually, as black people, have the American dream here in America? And I don't know if we really can, I'm trying to be careful with my words, but I do think there needs to be a degree of separatism. Like black people, we really need to have our own to fully take part in that dream.
This is their...
I guess. Okay, I understand what he's talking about because obviously the first thing you hear is like, oh, he wants segregation. I think it's more about just like building up their own community to be able to like give themselves jobs and spend in their old like black-owned business stuff so that they can try to get on an equal footing to white people in general.
System. Yeah. Why would we dream of being equal in a system that wasn't designed for us?
The American dream, at least the way that I define it, is freedom of opportunity, freedom to choose what I want to do, freedom to acquire wealth the same way that anybody else can. Obviously, we're fighting the tides of time on that and our circumstances, but it's hard because it's hard to honor that, but then also want more for myself. And I think that as black people, we're always teeter-tottering on that line of like, well, am I American? Like, do I get the American dream, or do we just tear all this down and build something new? White people are not the only people entitled to the
I don't know if that'll work, tearing everything down. But
American dream.
Yeah, middle class and lower class are being squeezed out. Well, I guess the middle class is being squeezed out into the lower class. Yeah, true. A lot of technology shit, bro. A lot of technology shit.
And I think that that's why we're all here, because our ancestors made it so that we can stand here and pursue that American dream.
I wouldn't have been here if it meant that it was not for everyone. I wouldn't have even entered America. I feel like not just African, but other people as well in different countries. And from what I have seen, I've seen other people, even Africans and African Americans, succeeding in their own way. And that's why I feel like you said, you can interpret the American dream in a different way, whatever industry or whatever it is that you're focusing on, because there is a level of opportunity there. There is some way that you can be successful. Talking about Trevor Noah, who took over The Daily Show, it wouldn't have been possible for him coming in as an African.
Yeah, I miss Jon Stewart. Not because he was white, I just like Jon Stewart a lot. Trevor Noah's not bad though, but I like Jon Stewart.
He got his American dream. It made us as well, other Africans, believe that it is possible.
The American dream writes his check. So he gets to have wealth or whatever it is that he's experiencing, but the American dream is the one who writes his check, not him.
I don't know what that means. Personally, it's over my head a little bit.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But do you see how we would put it as he had his American dream, even though someone writes his check? But for him, or for some of us looking at it on the other side, that's his American dream, because his goal was to get there. The biggest cultural shock I saw coming here was definitely the lifestyle, because the lifestyle I saw of America, especially Los Angeles, was portrayed as a very rich lifestyle. And of course, I came here as a student, and coming here, living here, and seeing the reality of it, seeing different homeless people, disadvantaged people, was really a cultural shock for me, because I didn't expect to see that. And I guess also the way people were handling
It's just crazy out here, bro.
each other, because coming in as an African, I thought people were together. But since being here, I saw that there was a huge divide, or there is still a huge divide within the African American community themselves.
It's true, man. It's unfortunate. Like, I always bring up this story. Like, I called a Haitian woman black once, and she almost beat the shit out of me, you know? There seems to be a lot of, like, I guess you call it colorism or some kind of racism or prejudice between, like, you see non-native black people versus native black people. So people who come over from, you know, people who are descendants of slaves versus people who come over from Africa now. There's, like, they kind of hate each other. I've talked to a couple of black people that talk about it, how, like, they went to a school and there was, like, an issue with, you know, some of them being called this and that. And it's interesting. So
If he had stayed in South Africa, would he have the same opportunity that he had here?
No.
Like, you know, so corporate is writing his check, but like us growing up, the reason we move here is because we don't have it better back home. Like me, like for me, I'm the first person ever in my family in America. Everybody else is back home. Everybody's depending on me. Like, all of them, my mom, she's dying to come here. Like, she willing to do anything just for her to be in America. So for me, when I look at those like little things, I'm like, yeah, American dream is for everybody, you know? Like, yeah, we might not have the same opportunity as the white people, but there's still that little chance that a lot of us back home are willing to take just to get here.
I trust law enforcement.
I don't have a thing to say.
All right.
I don't know, man. I feel like the frustration with law enforcement is going up regardless of, like, people, you know. But I've never had any significant issue with law enforcement. One time I was driving on, like, a highway, and I saw somebody going 74. So I thought they were trying to race me, so I raced them, and then they tried to get me to pull over and stuff. Turned out that they were an off-duty cop, and then they came to my house and gave me a ticket for, like, bullshit because they were so offended. But then I was arrested once, and they were really nice to me. You know, they had to come to the house. I told the story yesterday about, like, I was arrested for, like, an altercation between, like, myself and somebody else, and I pushed the guy, and they were nice, like, hey, we'll give you 2 handcuffs. I'm a big chunker. And then there was another time I was driving to another state, and they saw that I had, like, my plates on there, and they pulled me over for, like, some bullshit reason. So whatever. But those are obviously not that bad of interactions with police officers. But I think find police officers be annoying sometimes. Plus, in my area, police get paid, like, overpaid, in my opinion, like, drastically. Like, they're like they make like 117,000 after a certain amount of time, and there's not exactly the most dangerous area. So
Can they disagree or step forward?
meanwhile, in, like, fucking New York City, they top paying $90K, which I feel like maybe they could deserve more. I don't know.
I got married to a young lady who did 15 years in prison for a robbery she didn't commit. I myself was incarcerated for 6 months for a burglary that I couldn't have committed because I was in prison. So in 1987,
Interesting.
when I'm doing 19 months in prison, when I came home in 1988, I was given a burglary charge and I had to sit 6 months. And the judge
Wow.
did not kick it out because there's no way I could have done it. He kicked it out because they didn't serve me the warrant while I was in prison.
What?
So I don't trust them. They lie and they do things, and it affects our people. So many people I know who have been
What's
wrongfully
that? That's
arrested,
crazy.
wrongfully convicted, and they actually lie on the stand. So there's no trust.
As you guys know, I am from Richmond, Virginia. It was the capital of the Confederate. I have been brutally abused by the police there. Like, personally, I was at the river on the 4th of July.
Toriasu super chatted $1.99. Had a cop ask if my Arizona was a 40 maybe racist.
Oh, like if your Arizona IC was like a 40, like an alcoholic beverage, maybe that's racist. I don't know. I guess if you're black, isn't that a stereotype that black people drink 40s or something? Okay. Yeah, maybe.
I don't smoke. I don't do none of that. The police come and arrest me because I look like a drug dealer. Like, they arrested me.
What? The stereotype?
Then when I was in high school, my senior year, my father went to jail over a car accident. And I was left alone at 17 years old. I was grateful.
That
One of
sucks.
my teachers took me in and, like, raised me. I try to stay away from the police as much as possible.
First of all, they're human beings, and I think that just because you put a badge on doesn't magically bewitch you with like integrity and a desire to actually help the people around you. I think.
True. That's fucking base as hell, bro. I gotta say, bro, cops are just guys who got C. Just people who got C's in high school. You know what I mean? That's fucking true, dude. But you know, it's annoying because I feel like cops walk around as your boss instead of like just people who are supposed to protect you. Like, my police officers aren't my boss. Their job is to uphold the law, but like they act like fucking assholes sometimes. The power gets to them. You know, that's kind of true, and in general. But I can see why the racial issues happen more because, like, I know a few different people's grandfathers who used to be police officers, and holy fuck, they were racist. I mean, holy shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy that shit, like that kind of passes down. Like, let's say 3 generations ago, cops were racist, and nowadays, like the people that are becoming cops aren't racist. But then you get to kind of put into this position where you have some of those like old teachings that are still there, and you're like, and then you're seeing like, you know, I just feel like it passes down in some capacity, and it's difficult to truly root out. You know.
A lot of times, police culture comes from police families. It comes from like legacy lines and this whole like kind of like culture about stuff. I mean, I don't trust them any more than I would trust any other person. They haven't earned that necessarily, especially not as an institution. In its purest form, I think it's necessary, but they have a lot of living up to that to do and to make up for if they're going to be trusted.
I've seen law enforcement here on social media and seeing how they treat people of color, you know, from like hitting them. I mean, George Floyd, you know, rest in peace. But just seeing that from my experience being here, I was scared, you know, like every time I'd see a cop pass by, I'm like, okay, I better make sure I'm driving okay, you know, because I don't want to be stopped, or make sure you're not in any harm's way, you know. But it's sad to feel that pressure every time you see a cop going by. And even if they're trying to help, but I wouldn't even want that help because of what I've been seeing on social media, you know, and also seeing the case of people being wrongfully, you know, taken to prison. That's like unfair. Like, what type of research are you doing before you arrest people?
And I immediately thought about the history of the police too, just tracing that back to slave patrols, which became our modern day police departments. And
the fact that like if you have a felony you can't vote, like that to me is like, talk about the loss of the American dream. Like, you are a citizen of this country, you should always have a right to vote.
Sure.
We are obsessed with race in America.
That part is definitely true. Even if you think it's justifiable, we are obsessed with race in America. It's fucking true, bro. It really is true. You can say it's a justifiable obsession. I'm just saying it is true.
I think that word obsessed is such an interesting word, and I think that the way that question is framed is almost as if it's like the onus is on us, like we're obsessed with race too much. Like, no, white people are obsessed with race in this country. They've made their laws based on it. They've cast us out because of it.
Well, I'd say, like, listen, I don't know all white people. There are white people who are super racist. I feel like one of the issues that I see between like white and black people is that white people don't care about race as much in general, because white people don't have to care about race, right? Like, it's one of those things where I think a lot of white people don't really see themselves, and there are racists, I'm not saying, but there are white people who mostly, I think, at least the ones in my experience, they don't care about race. They don't find it to be a factor in their lives because, like, you know, I've never been oppressed for being white, except for that one time that black guy said I couldn't jump. Couldn't prove him wrong, though, so that was unfortunate. But I don't really have to care. So I'm not a white guy, I'm just a dude, you know what I mean? Whereas, like, a black person, there's a bunch of experiences that they're talking about now, so there's a much more of a reason to identify with them being black in a much greater capacity. And then as white people, the narrative used to be like, don't see color, which I think is generally reasonable on an individual level. On a systemic level, I understand having to understand and acknowledge race. And so we kind of get like this, you know, everybody's kind of like not understanding each other. That's how I see it, you know? They've
like destroyed entire groups of people because of it. So, I mean, we're just living in the ripple effects of the stones that were cast in the pond of history. So we're just reacting.
And also, just be clear, like, I know I'm white, but I didn't do the slavery kind of stuff, you know what I'm saying, dude? Like, just be real. Like, I was born to a system, obviously benefit from it. Poggers, I'd always re-up as white because I don't want to be oppressed. But I didn't create the system. I wouldn't even say I necessarily uphold it. I just exist in it. You know, it's just difficult to, you know, have these, I guess it's difficult to make like real systemic change, you know? That's what it comes down to.
It. So we would rather just be human beings and American citizens and, you know, people that are pursuing an American dream. We'd rather not have to think about race, but that, we did not draw first blood on that.
What else do you expect?
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm not obsessed.
For me, being in America, give me an opportunity to like meet and like discover so many different culture that I would never see if I was in my country. I would just like maybe hear about it on the news. Yes, I agree. I think they are very obsessed with race. Even when you do like an easy application, like it doesn't matter what application you do, they want to know your race. They want to know, you know, why they don't have a category for Africans. You know,
That's why I'm checking out every time.
They want to know everything.
The thing that pisses me off the most is that when they see you and they be like, oh, you have an accent. Where are you from? Like, who cares where I'm from? Just sell me this thing and let me keep going.
And when you tell them that you're African, they be like, what country?
Yeah, they're so obsessed with where you're from.
Well, I think that's white people trying to be nice, right? Like, it's a weird thing, and I feel like it's an overcorrection. It's weird, but like where a white person will see a black person with like an accent and be like, oh, where are you from? Or they'll be like, oh, your hair looks so nice. Like it comes from trying to be more inclusive. But then it comes off as like weird and like fucking obsessive. But that's kind of like, it's just more of like, oh, I'm trying to be nice. How do I make this person feel comfortable? And then it's like an overcorrection. You know what I mean? That's what it comes down to. I think when it comes to white people talking about shit.
Kinda.
Like,
I don't believe that there's an obsession about race in America. I believe that race is a distraction to hide the power, the wealth, and the access to it. So a lot of times there's something put on the table, like a rock being thrown, and I hold my hand, and that's the racism between black and whites, between blacks and Hispanic, and other cultures have come here. We'll talk about race just so that we don't have access to the power and the wealth, and I think it's done on purpose. There's a power that allows us to talk about race if we don't look past it.
some of the questions.
The guy's base as fuck, I'll tell you, brother. I've been feeling everything he's been saying. I respect that guy. I've been identifying with old people more lately. I'm getting old, bro. Fuck.
Prompts that I see differently, and then when I hear somebody say it, I'm like, that actually makes sense coming from their perspective. So it's been really beautiful having this conversation with you guys. You guys are very knowledgeable, and I've learned a whole lot from each and every one of you today.
Going into this with like the title of the series, like African versus African American, I think that like people were gonna come in thinking that we were gonna be like guns blazing, but this is such.
Yeah, I did. I thought that there was gonna be a lot of animosity between each of these groups, all these people. I guess I would have said. But like, it was pretty chill. It was pretty informative. You know, I feel like it was an interesting perspective. You know,
beautiful display of unity. I love it. It like gave me so much life today.
All right, cool video.
I want Papa God to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.